Let's be honest. When you really like someone, there's one thing that's hard to get off your mind. How do I make sure he's thinking about me just as much as I'm thinking about him? The truth is, attraction alone isn't enough. You can be beautiful, smart, and fun, and still fade from his thoughts the moment you leave the room. What really makes someone unforgettable isn't just how you look or what you say, it's how you make them feel. This isn't about playing games, it's about learning the subtle art of presence, value, and emotional connection. In this guide, you're going to discover 5 powerful and proven ways to stay on his mind. Not for a moment, but over and over again. Done right, these methods don't just make you memorable, they make you magnetic. Let's dive in. The first key to making him think about you non-stop is creating emotional associations. People rarely remember every word you say, but they never forget how you make them feel. That feeling becomes a trigger, and soon your name becomes tied to a specific emotion. You want that emotion to be uplifting, calming, exciting, something he subconsciously starts craving. It doesn't mean you have to put on a show or entertain him all the time. In fact, it's often the small things that stick the most. A genuine laugh you share, a compliment that's thoughtful rather than generic, or a moment where he feels seen when no one else noticed. If every time you interact, he feels just a little more understood, a little more at ease, a little more alive, then slowly you start to take up emotional real estate in his mind. And once that happens, he'll begin to reach for you, not out of habit, but out of desire. It's not about controlling his thoughts, it's about becoming the best part of his day. When he starts to associate you with joy, connection, or even mystery, you naturally become unforgettable. Mystery is powerful, but not in the way most people think. It's not about playing cold or being emotionally unavailable. Mystery is about pacing the reveal of who you are. It's about letting someone discover you gradually rather than giving everything away at once. In a world where everyone is oversharing, over-explaining, and trying too hard to impress, mystery becomes magnetic. When someone feels like there's more to uncover about you, they naturally stay curious. And curiosity, when emotionally charged, becomes obsession. When you like someone, the natural instinct is to give more, to share more, talk more, reveal more. Because deep down, you want them to know the real you. That instinct is human. But the problem is, when you rush the reveal, you skip the dance. You rob the interaction of tension, and tension, when done right, is a beautiful part of attraction. It's what keeps someone leaning in, wanting to know more, trying to figure you out. That's what keeps their mind coming back to you long after the conversation is over. Mystery isn't about holding back your personality or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about intentional unfolding. Think of yourself as a great book. If the whole plot is dumped in the first chapter, there's no reason to turn the page. But if each chapter reveals something new, with twists, emotions, and surprises, the reader gets hooked. They think about the story even when they're not reading it. That's what you want to be. A story he can't stop reading. A woman he can't stop thinking about because he senses there's always more to uncover. Practically speaking, this means you don't need to fill every silence. You don't need to explain every decision or justify every feeling. Let him ask. Let him wonder. There be moments where he's not sure what you're thinking, and let him earn the privilege of knowing. When you share parts of your life, Do it with confidence, but keep some things just for you. That inner world, that self-assured sense of privacy makes him realize you're not just someone hoping to be liked. You're someone with a full life, a rich mind, and a calm sense of independence. Mystery also comes from the ability to surprise. Maybe you're warm and soft in one moment and sharp and witty in the next. Maybe you're playful during one conversation and deeply reflective the next. These contrasts create depth. They show that you are multi-dimensional, and it's that unpredictability, those glimpses into different sides of you, that keep someone captivated. If he can predict everything you'll say and do, he stops paying attention. But when you keep him on his toes, not in a manipulative way, but in an authentic, grounded way, he stays engaged. He wants to learn more. And that desire becomes a loop he can't easily close. It's also important to recognize that mystery isn't about distance, it's about selective closeness. You're not unavailable, you're just not easily available. There's a difference. You show up when it matters. You're present in meaningful moments. But you don't flood his world with attention. You leave space. You let him feel your presence and your absence. That space creates longing, and longing is the doorway to obsession. Let's also be clear, mystery isn't manipulation. You're not being vague just to confuse him. You're not hiding who you are. You're simply choosing when and how to reveal your deeper layers. You're letting him experience the real you, but in a way that respects your value. You're not rushing to prove your worth. You're allowing him to witness it over time. When he walks away from a conversation with you and finds himself thinking, what was she really thinking in that moment? Or, I wonder what drives her. You've done your job. When he realizes he knows you, but not completely, he'll want to know more. And the more emotionally engaged he becomes, the more space you take up in his mind. That's the kind of mystery that lasts. Not the mystery of being distant, but the mystery of being deep. Real attraction isn't about being the most obvious or loudest person in the room. It's about having the kind of energy that draws people in without you needing to chase. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth and doesn't need to over-explain it. That's what mystery really is. It's not about silence, it's about substance. It's not about avoidance, it's about intention. So, as you connect with him, hold on to that sense of layered expression. Let your story unfold naturally. Let your energy invite interest rather than demand it. And trust that when you move with grace, self-assurance, and a little unpredictability, he won't just think about you occasionally. He'll start thinking about you constantly because you're not easy to figure out. And he'll love the feeling of trying. The third key to making him think about you nonstop is something that's often overlooked: high value presence. In a world full of distractions, it's easy to be physically present, but emotionally absent. We've all been there, scrolling through our phones, checking out mentally during a conversation, or nodding along without really engaging. But true connection happens when you're not just physically there, but when your attention is fully on the person in front of you. This is how you create an emotional imprint, one that makes him think about you long after you've left the room. When you're truly present, you're not just responding to what he's saying, you're actively engaging with him on a deeper level. You're not just hearing the words, you're feeling the emotion behind them. You're not simply replying to a text, you're reflecting on it, engaging in it with a thoughtfulness that makes him feel understood. Close. People skim through their conversations, only half listening, thinking of what they're going to say next, rather than truly absorbing what the other person is saying. But when you give him your full attention, you stand out. People remember how they felt when they interacted with someone. If he leaves an encounter with you feeling heard, seen, and respected, you've created a lasting emotional connection. This is about more than just being attentive. It's about showing up with intention. When you engage with him, make sure you're not just offering a piece of yourself, but giving him a genuine experience. When you listen to him talk, really listen, not just for the words, but for the meaning behind them. When he shares something vulnerable, respond with empathy. The most valuable thing you can give someone is your time and your undivided attention. It's about being perfect or saying the right thing all the time. It's about creating space for him to be real and showing that you can match his vulnerability with your own authenticity. One of the ways to elevate your presence is to become attuned to his emotions. Recognize when he's excited, when he's upset, when he's just being playful. The more you can tune into his emotional state, the more you become an emotional anchor for him. He'll start associating you with a sense of comfort, joy, and even inspiration. It's that emotional connection that stays with him even when you're not around. It's not about trying to manipulate his emotions or change how he feels. It's about showing up with empathy, being the person who sees the world through his eyes for a moment and responding in a way that makes him feel understood. The beauty of high-value presence is that it's contagious. When you bring this kind of energy into a conversation, it invites the same in return. You'll notice that he starts showing up more fully for you, engaging with you on a deeper level and opening up in ways that surprise you. It's a feedback loop of emotional connection that starts with you. When you make the decision to bring your full self to the interaction, you're not just giving him your time, you're offering him an experience he'll want to have again. And every time you show up this way, you reinforce the emotional connection between you both, making you unforgettable. Here's the secret. People don't just want attention. They want emotional resonance. They want someone who sees them, who understands them, and who can be present in moments of vulnerability. So when you are fully present, you're not just investing in the conversation, you're investing in the relationship itself. You're creating something that feels substantial, something he can't easily forget because it's rare. How often do we really feel like someone is fully there with us? That sense of being truly understood is one of the most attractive qualities you can possess. To increase your high-value presence, try these small but powerful shifts. When you're with him, put your phone away. Give him your undivided attention. Make eye contact and really listen. Don't just respond, but reflect back what you're hearing. Ask thoughtful follow-up questions that show you're genuinely interested. Share your thoughts with vulnerability, not as a way to impress him, but as a way to connect. And if you're texting, take the time to craft thoughtful, meaningful responses. This shows him you value him enough to invest in the conversation rather than rushing through it. But here's the twist. Presence isn't about being available at every moment. In fact, sometimes your emotional presence is felt the most when you give him space to miss you. If you're always available, if you're always reaching out, he won't have the chance to experience the emotional impact of your absence. You want to create moments where he feels the lack of your presence, where he's left thinking about you because you've given him a reason to. Ultimately, high-value presence is about showing up as your best self and being engaged in the moment. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present in a way that leaves a lasting impression. i.e., you want to remember when he thinks about you. He'll remember the times when you truly saw him, when you listened to him with your whole heart, and when you made him feel valued. That's what will make him think about you non-stop. When you bring that kind of energy into every interaction, you're not just a person he likes spending time with. You become someone who holds space in his heart and mind, making you unforgettable. The fourth key to making him think about you non-stop is a counterintuitive one: strategic space. It may sound strange, but one of the most powerful ways to keep someone thinking about you is by giving them room to miss you. It's easy to get caught up in the urge to be constantly available, especially when you really like someone. But the truth is, being too available can cause you to fade into the background. When you're always present, always responding, always around, you become predictable and ultimately forgettable. On the flip side, when you create space for him to miss you, you give him the opportunity to long for your presence. He starts to realize how much he enjoys being around you, and that creates a sense of desire. This desire isn't built by over-texting or over-communicating. It's created by thoughtful moments of absence. When you're not around, he's left wondering about you. He finds himself thinking about your last conversation, remembering the sound of your laugh, and replaying the moments that stood out. This doesn't mean disappearing or playing games. It means being intentional with your time and energy. You still make him feel valued, but you also give him the space to want you. This strategy is all about balance. You don't want to be so distant that he forgets about you, but you don't want to be so available that he takes you for granted. The key is to create enough room for him to feel the absence of your presence. So when you come back into his world, it's with a sense of excitement and longing. Think about it this way: people value what they can't easily have. When something is readily available all the time, it loses its perceived value. But when someone has to work for your time and attention, it creates a sense of effort. And effort, in the context of relationships, leads to deeper attachment. The absence you create doesn't need to be long, but it should be meaningful. If you always reply to text immediately or always drop everything to meet up, there's no space for him to miss you. But if you sometimes wait to reply, if you're not always immediately available for a call or date, you allow him to experience the anticipation of being with you. Now, let's be clear, this doesn't mean playing hard to get or being intentionally distant for the sake of manipulation. Yeah, it's about creating moments of absence where he can feel the weight of your presence when it's there. Think of it as allowing the tension to build in a relationship. When you're not constantly at his fingertips, he feels a bit of longing, and that longing translates into a stronger attraction. Strategic space also ties into something very important: self-sufficiency. When you are constantly at someone's beck and call, you risk making them feel like they're the center of your world. That can come across as clingy or needy. But when you live a full, independent life, you send a message that you don't need them to feel complete. You're living for yourself, enjoying your own world. And if they want to be a part of it, they need to meet you at your level. This doesn't mean pushing them away. It means letting him see that you have a life, a purpose, and ambitions that exist outside of the relationship. It's this level of self-assuredness that makes you incredibly magnetic. When he sees you're thriving on your own, it ignites a desire in him to be part of your journey. He starts thinking, I want to be with someone who is as independent and vibrant as she is. By creating space and maintaining your independence, you're also reminding him that you're a woman of value. You don't need to chase him for attention or validation. Instead, you hold your own. You give him the chance to pursue you, and that pursuit brings out the best in him. It encourages him to show you that he values your time and your presence, and when he does that, he'll think about you more, because now he has to work for your time and attention. And when someone has to work for something, they appreciate it more. Creating space also helps you avoid becoming too dependent on the relationship for your happiness. When you don't make his attention the focal point of your emotional well-being, you maintain your sense of self and your confidence. This gives you a sense of inner peace that is incredibly attractive. If you're constantly available, constantly feeding into the relationship for validation, it can leave you feeling drained for a particular reason, and where he can give him the space to chase you while you focus on your own passions, friendships, and personal growth, it maintains a healthy dynamic and leaves him wanting more. Here's an example. Imagine you've been texting consistently, and then, for a couple of days, you take a step back. You don't disappear, you just don't rush to reply. You're busy with other things. Maybe you're working on a project, spending time with friends, or simply enjoying some downtime. When you do reply, your messages are thoughtful and full of meaning, but you've allowed him to feel the absence of your presence. That space gives him a reason to look forward to hearing from you. It keeps him wondering what you're up to and how you're feeling. That desire to know more keeps him thinking about you. Strategic space is a reminder that relationships, like any healthy pursuit, require a balance of closeness and distance. Too much closeness and you risk losing your sense of self. Too much distance and you risk fading into the background. The sweet spot is a balanced dance of presence and absence. A subtle play between being there enough to create connection, but distant enough to maintain his interest and intrigue. Ultimately, the power of strategic space lies in your ability to show that you have your own life, your own goals, and your own passions. When he sees that, he'll not only think about you nonstop, he'll want to be a part of it. And that's when you know you've created an attraction that's real, deep, and long-lasting. The fifth and final key to making him think about you non-stop is vulnerability. It's a concept that many shy away from because they fear being judged, rejected, or appearing weak. But here's the truth. Vulnerability, when used correctly, is one of the most powerful tools for building deep, lasting connections. It's not about oversharing or laying all your emotional cards on the table at once. It's about showing him the real you, the parts of you that aren't perfect but are raw, authentic, and deeply human. Being vulnerable doesn't mean you need to pour out your deepest secrets or let him in on every detail of your past. Vulnerability is simply about letting him see your true self without the need for masks or pretenses. When you open up in a way that's genuine, he can't help but connect with you on a deeper level. And when someone feels a true connection, they don't forget it. In fact, they often think about it long after the conversation ends. Vulnerability is magnetic because it's rare. In a world where so many people are focused on putting up walls, pretending to have it all together, or showcasing only the parts of themselves they think will be liked, real vulnerability cuts through the noise. It's the moment when someone allows themselves to be seen, flaws and all, that creates a bond that's not easily broken. It's the kind of bond that lingers in his mind because it's real. It's the kind of emotional honesty that sticks with him long after you've parted ways. So how do you use vulnerability in a way that makes him think about you non-stop? First, it's about knowing when and how to share. Vulnerability isn't about spilling your heart every time you speak. It's about picking the right moments to let him see the real you. When the conversation allows for it, when you feel comfortable, and when the emotional climate is right. The beauty of vulnerability is that it doesn't need to be big or dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as sharing a small, honest emotion or an experience that shaped you. When you talk about your passions, your fears, or something meaningful to you, it creates an emotional connection that makes him feel closer to you. These moments of openness give him the opportunity to relate to you, to see your humanity, and to recognize that you're not just someone who exists in his life as an idealized version, but as a real, complex person. Vulnerability also creates trust. When you show him your authentic self, he feels safe enough to do the same. This creates a dynamic where both of you can share and connect on a deeper level. Trust, once established, creates a bond that is difficult to forget. The more he feels like he's been let into your world, your thoughts, your experiences, your emotions, the more he starts to care about what happens to you. And when someone cares, they don't just forget you. They think about you, they wonder about you, and they long to be around you more. However, vulnerability requires courage. It's about allowing yourself to be seen in a way that's raw and honest. That might mean sharing a moment of insecurity, talking about something you've struggled with, or showing that you don't have all the answers. But paradoxically, this kind of openness shows strength, shows that you're not afraid of being authentic. That's incredibly attractive. Strength isn't about pretending to be perfect. It's about being comfortable with your imperfections. And when you do that, you make space for him to be vulnerable with you, which deepens the emotional connection between you both. One of the most attractive things about vulnerability is that it creates a sense of intimacy that can't be replicated through superficial interactions. When you allow him to see your flaws and your humanity, it's a gift. It says, this is who I really am, and I trust you with this part of me. That trust creates a sense of exclusivity. He starts to feel like he's someone who has been let into a deeper part of your world, and that exclusivity, the feeling that he's special enough to see this side of you, makes him think about you even when you're not around. To be clear, vulnerability doesn't mean oversharing or dumping your emotional baggage on him. It's about unpolished you. That authenticity is what keeps him thinking about you long after the moment has passed. He'll replay your conversations in his mind, remembering how you shared something meaningful, how you opened up, and how that made him feel closer to you. This emotional connection built through vulnerability is what makes you unforgettable. It's not about creating a perfect facade. It's about showing up as your true self. It's the moments of honesty, the raw emotions, and the courage to be real that leave a lasting impression. And when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, he'll think about you nonstop, not just because of the surface level things, but because he's connected with something much deeper. Vulnerability may feel risky at times, but it's the risk that creates the reward. By showing him who you really are, you're not just making an impression, you're creating a connection that goes beyond the surface. And that's what keeps him thinking about you long after you've said goodbye.